come together this evening to pray and remember the way, shower, and model of our possibilities, Jesus the Christ. It's on this day that we acknowledge the immediate prelude to a story of victory, a story of the Christ Spirit's triumph over the most horrific conditions. We come together to experience a retelling of the supreme test of Jesus' life. This ancient, sacred story illustrates that we, having faith in God, can rise above all earthly limitations to attain the fullness of the spiritual life. This evening, I'd like to introduce our Good Friday worship team members, Reverend Deborah Phillips, Paula Mandela, Ann Roach, and Reverend Louise Bizarre.
We light this candle to symbolize the everlasting light that shines within all of us, the Christ light that clears away all darkness.
So let's take a moment of communing with the presence, the power, and the love of God. And we're reminded that we indeed live and move and have our very beingness in this unalterable presence, a presence that's called many different names. And regardless of what we call it, our task is to call it forth as the activity of our awareness. And as we make this activity, this presence, the activity of our awareness, no matter what we're going through, no matter what experience that we've encountered, no matter how challenges it may be, it is a reminder that there is something within us that is greater than anything that comes to us from the outside world. And as we embody this presence and fully live out this presence, we're able to move from being a victim to a victor, to a vessel of the Spirit of the living God. And as a vessel of this presence, we come into our true identity as expressions of the Christ, as children of the Most High. And we realize that this is the truth that liberates us and sets us free. We accept that, we affirm that, and we're grateful for that truth. And so it is, and so we let it be. Amen. A few months ago, we celebrated the Christmas season on Christmas Day, the birth of the Christ presence, Jesus of Nazareth. And at the time, we discovered the metaphysical meaning of his birth, the rising of his consciousness. We looked at the so-called lost years where he traveled and studied, and then he returned to begin his ministry, to follow up his purpose. As we come to the story today on Good Friday, Jesus is under a death sentence and hangs on a cross between two thieves. And we may wonder, how did it come to this? What was the backdrop? So before we enter the metaphysical implications of the Jesus' last hours, let us consider what transpired during those 3 years. Certainly there were good times that came about during that time. There were the miracles and the healings. There's the turning the water into wine. There are wonderful and magnificent teachings that he presented to the masses, like the Sermon on the Mount. This is a time of very high consciousness moments, and we prefer to focus on that. Yet we know there were other moments. Jesus openly defied the Jewish authority. He challenged the Pharisees when he declared that what comes out of the mouth is more important than what goes in the mouth, which was a direct affront to the ancient dietary laws. He was admonished for healing people on the Sabbath, but he did not stop. There are 7 instances of him healing on the Sabbath. He charged to the temple courtyard to overturn the money changers' tables. And then to top it off, he rode into Jerusalem just as King Solomon had, with people waving palms and proclaiming him King of the Jews. The truth is that Jesus was always needling authority. His message is one of compassion and love. It was a message of forgiveness and understanding. And it was this very teaching that required him to push back at the limited traditional thinking of the Pharisees. And so looking at this dynamic, we can see that Jesus had constant pressure to stray from his spiritual path. Certainly would have made his life so much easier if he simply played by the rules. Question might be, what would Jesus really do when it came down to life and death? Would his teachings hold? Would he fulfill the purpose for which he was born? The tension between Jesus and the Pharisees had been rising for some time, and he intentionally agitated them by riding in Jerusalem as had King Solomon, letting people proclaim him King of the Jews. He knew this would push things way beyond their comfort zone, and there would be pushback. But he held his ground. He stood in truth. He had many opportunities to dodge this experience and simply disappear. His disciples even encouraged him to do so. He had one last meal.
And circulating our treasure. Let us bless our gifts together. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, and all that I circulate. Amen.
Before I knew your name, you knew my every breath. Before I found my way, you knew my every step. Before I knew everything that I need, you gave it all to me. No greater love than this, that you should lay down your life for someone such as me. I'd spend a lifetime wondering why the beauty of heaven is here in my heart, and I know there can be no greater love than this. I never understood how merciful love could be, until I felt God's flame light every part of me, and I would give everything that I am, 'cause I have been loved.
Metaphysically, we do not view the crucifixion of Jesus as a tragedy, but as a step toward a great victory. And Jesus assured us that the same victory illustrated in his story can be attained by us. During his crucifixion, Jesus gave us 7 statements. These statements are contained in scattered form across all the Gospels. Each of the 7 statements made by Jesus may be considered as a continuation of his teachings, and like all of his teachings, especially appropriate for us today. They are a unique form of highly condensed metaphysical teaching, almost a kind of verbal shorthand. But for those with eyes to see, they contain a significant spiritual meaning. The crucifixion itself symbolizes a process of crossing out or eliminating that which is no longer needful for our continued unfoldment. What has fulfilled its purpose in us must be either lifted to a higher level of expression in consciousness or let go of completely. Jesus' crucifixion illustrates both of these meanings. The 7 statements by Jesus from the cross verbalize 7 great realizations of truth, which are necessary for our continued spiritual growth and unfoldment.
So we begin with the words, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Inner forgiveness is the mightiest of spiritual acts. Without it, nothing in the nature of real spiritual progress can be achieved. Jesus made this the first of his 7 statements because of its primary importance. It is significant that he does not claim to be the doing of the forgiveness. He acknowledges God as the only forgiving power. Human beings would be wise to do the same. We should try to realize that it's not really my forgiveness or your forgiveness, but is the forgiving love of God itself. In fact, we can go so far as to say that this presence, this power, and the love of God is never in a state of unforgiveness, because nothing can ever stop from loving us. God supporting us, God uplifting us. All we can do is frustrate this presence, but we can never stop it. Nevertheless, it makes it much easier to forgive when we realize that it's not something personal, which the I, must cook up for itself. All that we do and I do is consent. I consent to let the loving power of God simply be directed through me in behalf of others who need such forgiveness. For we know they know not what they do. If people really knew what they were doing when doing something that perceived as wrong, they simply would not go through with it. Behind all offenses, there is a lack of understanding. Even a person who thinks or she thinks knows what they are doing when they harm another actually does not. And thus on Friday morning, when at the 3rd hour, 3 crosses were raised at Golgotha, and Jesus was placed in the middle cross with a thief on either side of him. He was able to look down at his tormentors and say, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. I hear you pray for those who torture you. These are the words that tear my grudges all apart. Create in me a tender heart. Create in me a tender heart.
As we hear these first words of Jesus from the cross, we say, loving God, we bless those who persecute us. In doing so, the Christ Spirit cleanses us of the injustices we have committed and those that have been committed toward us. To those we have offended, we ask for forgiveness. To those who have hurt us, we offer forgiveness. I freely forgive and am forgiven through the Christ that dwells within me. I invite you to take and repeat that affirmation quietly to yourself as you now feel the cleansing action of the Christ's forgiveness in you. I freely forgive and am forgiven through the Christ that dwells within me.
Will be with me in paradise. What is paradise? Where is it? Jesus knew, and he told us about it many times in his teachings. Basically, paradise is a name given to here and now consciousness of oneness with God. Where is oneness with God? It is here. When is oneness with God? It is now. Jesus spoke these words to one of the thieves being crucified with him. Charles Fillmore wrote that these two thieves symbolize past and future. Memories of the past can rob us. Anxiety about the future can rob us. But spiritual awareness, Jesus, never robs us, but rather gives us strength and protection. The thief to whom Jesus spoke represents the future. What does spiritual awareness in us, Jesus, say about our future? Does it tell us to fear it? Does it urge us to protect ourselves from it? No. Spiritual awareness says to our future, today you will be with me in paradise. In other words, spiritual awareness says we can bring our concern for our future into our here and now consciousness of oneness with God. We need not project into the future. Rather, bring all thoughts about the future into paradise. Paradise is our oneness with God. It is here. It is now. It is forever. As the day progressed, one of the thieves railed at Jesus, saying, "Are you not the Christ? Save yourself. Save us." But the other thief rebuked him, saying, Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we are condemned justly, for we are receiving the due reward for our deeds, but this man has done nothing wrong. And he said, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus spoke, saying, Truly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise.
You turn your head to address a dying thief. Today you'll be in paradise with me. These are the words where every hopeless soul must start. Create in me a trusting heart. Create in me a trusting heart.
As we return now to that quiet place within, we carry with us the knowledge that whenever we turn to the Christ of our being and ask for help, it is always freely given. In faith, I turn to the Christ within and know that this day and every day I am one with my good, one with my God. And just take a moment to reflect silently on this affirmation. In faith, I turn to the Christ within and know that this day and every day I am one with my good, one with my God.
Woman, behold your son. Behold your mother. These words were spoken to Mary, and according to tradition, to the disciple John. Mary and John were not mother and son, but Jesus was speaking from a level of the highest understanding concerning the truth of human relationships. One of the greatest realizations that can come to a person is the realization of his true or her true relationship to every other human being in the human family. Whatever biological ties may exist, the symbolic or metaphysical ties are stronger and more important. In spirit, we are each other's mother, brother, and sister. To realize this and to accept this will guarantee great steps forward in spiritual unfoldment. Jesus saw his mother and said to her, Woman, behold your son. Looking at John, he said, Son, behold your mother. And from that hour, John took Mary as his own.
And unto Mary, woman, behold your son. Behold your mother, your dying words to John. These words began a family of which I'm part. Create in me
reminded by this third statement that it is our responsibility to provide for those who are unable to care for themselves. We fulfill our human responsibilities willingly and with great love. And so we affirm, as I unfold spiritually, I fulfill my every obligation responsibly, wisely, and lovingly. Take in and quietly affirm this affirmation to yourself. And now, as you return to that reflective posture within, take in, I unfold spiritually. I fulfill my every obligation responsibly, wisely, and lovingly.
My God, why hast thou forsaken me? Jesus is here once again teaching by making of himself an example. Notice, the statement is a question. Jesus was probably not asking that question for his own sake, because he knew the truth that was the real answer. But he spoke the question to show us what is often in our own hearts as we seek to follow him. The question states a wondering in us as to why we are feeling separate from God. Even when we know better, the feeling may creep over us before we are even fully aware of it. We wonder why we once again feel that God has forsaken us. We ask why. There is nothing abnormal about this. It happens to the best of persons. In these periods of darkness, we find strength in the Christ Spirit within to persevere. God is there even in our darkest, most painful and confusing moments. And when the 6th hour had come, there was darkness over the whole land until the 9th hour. And Jesus cried out in a loud voice, my God, why have you forsaken me?"
Your darkest hour, you cried out from the tree. My God, why have you forsaken me? These are the words of anguish that pierce my heart. Create in me a thankful heart. Create in me a thankful heart.
As we experience spiritual crucifixion, we may feel as Jesus did as he uttered the 4th statement, that even God seems to have forsaken us. In these periods of darkness, we find strength in the Christ Spirit within to persevere. God is there, even in our darkest, most painful and confusing moments. God's love comforts me. God's power strengthens me in my hour of need. So as we return to the silence, take this affirmation into your heart. God's love comforts me. God's power strengthens me in my hour of need.
I thirst. This is an affirmation of a need. It is an asking. The asking is immediately followed by the meeting of that need. Jesus was given a sponge soaked with a mixture of vinegar and gall or myrrh, a soothing drink. Jesus had previously taught, ask, and you shall receive. Here he gives us an example of practicing what he preached. There are times when a person finds him or herself in a situation where things look hopeless. During such times, one may feel an overpowering, thirsting after righteousness. What should one then do? Jesus said, ask, and you will receive. And blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. With the presence and the power and the love of God, no situation is hopeless. For God is mightier than circumstances. Jesus, in the sublime example, and he affirms, he asks, I thirst, and he receives his drink. He asks, and Spirit provides.
You said I thirst, yet it was not for wine. You thirst for love from desert souls like mine. And with these words, a flowing river you impart, create in me a loving heart. Create in me a loving heart.
There comes a time in spiritual unfoldment when we finally know that the body is not limited to the physical. It is the temple of the living God, and its full needs can only be met by drinking of the living water, the life of the Christ's presence. As we return to the silence of our being, during that time, let us quietly affirm, I drink of the living water of spirit, and every need of my mind and body is fulfilled. we quietly repeat this to ourselves. I drink of the living water of spirit, and every need of my mind and body is fulfilled.
It is finished. Everything that happens in a person's life is part of a cycle of learning, growing, and unfolding. Each event, experience, each relationship, each victory, each defeat are all factors in a great overall pattern of evolution. One of the most difficult lessons a person may have to learn is to recognize when something has fulfilled its role in our life and is now to be seen as finished business. Some people never seem to recognize when something has finished. This pertains to other persons, possessions, jobs, pleasures. But it especially pertains to cycles of experience in our learning process in life. If we have to go through certain difficult or painful experiences, we should try to learn the lessons they contain as quickly as possible. When we feel we have seen the lesson, then it is wise to say, as Jesus said, "It is finished." Hold no grudges, nurse no hurt feelings, carry no unhappy memories. If it is finished, let it go. It has done its work. Greater good is now in store, and we let the past bury the past. It is finished. When we come to the limit of human effort and know that we have done all that we can do, we keep our faith and know that with God all things are possible. We have done all we can humanly do, and we totally surrender our will to God. And on that cross, Jesus recognized that he had done everything he came to do. And so he said, "It is finished."
Then it is finished, your work on earth is done. For in 3 days your battle would be won. These are the words with which you crown your works of art. Create in me a perfect heart. Create in me a perfect heart.
When we come to the limit of human effort and know that we have done all that we can do, we keep our faith and know that with God all things are possible. We have done all that we can humanly do, and we totally, completely surrender our will to God. And we have this affirmation to help us. The living, loving Christ of my being works for my highest good in all matters that I release to it. I let go and let God. And again, take this affirmation into your heart and into the silence. The living, loving Christ of my being works for my highest good in all matters that I release to it. I let go. I let God.
Abba, into thy hands I commit my spirit. In the beginning, God. In every ending, God. God is our all in all. Jesus had gone through a complete cycle in which he had accomplished exactly what he had come here to do. He had brought that cycle to a climax in the symbolism of the drama of the crucifixion. The words he chose to verbalize that climax are in the statement which is the apotheosis. Father, into thy hands I commit my spirit. People often wonder, what is going to happen to me next? If we will follow the example of Jesus, we can know that we can safely place ourselves, our lives, our bodies, our future in God's hands. We're not taking any risks when we do this. God is completely dependable because God cannot change. When Jesus gives us his example of commending his whole spirit into God's hands, he is once again demonstrating his own teachings. God is the answer to everything. God is the meaning behind everything. God is the only fate in store for his children. And God is absolute good. There was darkness over the whole land until the 9th hour. While the sun's light failed, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two. And then Jesus, crying out with a loud voice, said, Abba, into your hands I commit my spirit. And having said this, he breathed his last breath.
Father, I commend my breath, your final prayer as you close your eyes in death. And with these words, one day I'll fly to where you are, create in me. Create in me. Create in
as Jesus spoke the seventh statement, he surrendered his spirit. Not my will, but yours be done. Into the care and keeping of God, I give myself and all that concerns me. I rest from my labors and let God's will for good come forth in my life. Let's return to that secret, silent place once more with this thought, these words, this affirmation. I release and let go of my concerns. God's will be done in me now. I release and let go of my concerns. God's will be done in me now.
Christ has no body now but yours, no hands, no feet on earth but yours. Yours are the eyes through which he looks, compassion on this world. Yours are the feet with which he walks to do good. Yours are the hands with which he touches all the world. Yours are the hands, yours are the feet, yours are the eyes, you are his body. Christ has no body now but yours, no hands, no feet on earth but yours. Yours are the eyes with which he looks, compassion on this world. Christ has no body now on earth but yours.
We invite you to come on Sunday to hear the rest of the story. This concludes our service. Please leave in silence and go in peace.
dream